In an old house in Donggao village, Yongjia, Zhejiang, 15-year-old Xu Weijian is fluffing cotton. He's a green hand and doesn't yet understand how to use a mallet, which causes embarrassment for his father, Xu Xiaobing. Even when faced with the prospect of somebody else outside the family learning the family trade, Xu Weijian is still reluctant to placate his father, Xu Xiaobing, by expressing interest in inheriting his father's craft.
He is duty-bound to inherit this. It is a responsibility. I inherited this from my father, and he is due to inherit it from me. This is his station in life. He must learn it from me.
Your father said you will inherit his craft. What do you think?
Maybe. Probably.
Although Xu Weijian is as yet unenthusiastic about the craft of cotton fluffing, his father has additional means of convincing him. Xu Xiaobing intends to establish his own factory and see that it thrives. This, he thinks, will surely be enough for his son to accept. Xu Xiaobing is from a poor family in Fenglin town, Yongjia. 27 years have passed since he first learned to fluff cotton from his father when he was 11 years old. As a fourth-generation inheritor of the Xu family's cotton fluffing craft, he has lived through the trials and tribulations of the early Yongjia people. He has witnessed the ups and downs of the family craft, as well as the coming and going of craftsmen in an age of machines.
It's my belief that this craft is the medium through which the younger generation can catch a glimpse of the older generation's wisdom, without which new quilts and new machines won't be possible.
As its name suggests, cotton fluffing is a traditional Chinese practice involving the fluffing of cotton and making of quilts, with a recorded history of more than 800 years. Cotton fluffing comes in two forms. One form involves making quilts with new cotton. The other form involves making quilts with reworked cotton from older quilts. Through the help of a skilled craftsman, quilts which have been used for over a dozen years can be given new life. In the old days, families with daughters were in need of the cotton most. It was Chinese tradition that where a marriage might take place, the bride's family was obligated to furnish 8 quilts and 8 mattresses as the bride's dowry, so that the new couple could be free from cold. Nowadays, though this tradition is no longer followed, the quilts still remain an integral part of a typical dowry. Only a few decades ago, silk quilts, nitrilon quilts, and 9-hole quilt were regular features of people's lives. Up until the early 1990s, cotton fluffing craftsmen still appeared on the streets. Today, however, the cotton fluffing craft has all but faded. Yongjia, Zhejiang was home to a majority of cotton fluffing craftsmen before they mass migrated it and spread throughout the nation in the 1980s. Yongjia has more mountains than arable land, and villagers found it hard to earn a living in such harsh conditions. Out of necessity, Yongjia craftsmen began to venture out of the mountains to seek out additional opportunities for their skills. They were not, however, expecting to make any significant money, but instead to save their share of food at home so that one more family member could live tolerably. Cotton fluffing is easy to learn and doesn't utilize sophisticated procedures. A cotton bow, an abrasive disc, a mallet, and a bamboo batten are all you need to start your business. In the 1980s, thousands of Yongjia people left home to practice their trade throughout the country. But the craftsmen had to endure extraordinary hardship. Host families would provide food and accommodation during employment, but when business was slow, craftsmen would be left to sleep out on the streets and suffer cold and hunger. Some were even forced to sell their tools in exchange for end-of-year traveling expenses when business had been particularly bad.
It was simply not possible to just rent a house at that time. You could sleep anywhere in the woodshed or on the cotton fluffing board. When you got up in the morning, you just made your bed and put your quilt under the board. Life was tough.
Traditional craftsmen all have one certainty in the process of training. An aspiring craftsman can only learn his trade from a skilled master. A master doesn't have to be a relative of an apprentice, but an apprentice must treat him as his superior and show full respect. An apprentice will work with his master every day until he has realized the skill level of his master. There are no shortcuts, and the trade cannot be simply learnt by mere reading or listening. The saying goes that he who acts as a teacher for a day is father for a lifetime. This master-apprentice relationship is particularly important among cotton fluffing craftsmen. Different from today's environment, a master used to provide door-to-door service. To honor their master, an apprentice is expected to take on all the most purely physical work. A master specifically must be absent, for were he to take part, he would be most surely overlooked and underappreciated by a potential host. The subservient nature of a master-apprentice relationship is evidently revealed in the first procedure involved in cotton fluffing. Cotton shoveling is the first step towards cotton fluffing and aims at tearing cotton fibers apart. The tool is a board 36 centimeters in length and 17 centimeters in width with 182 nails. When shoveling cotton, it is necessary that the cotton be rolled up tightly so that maximum tension will be generated out of the rubbing between the cotton and the nails. The standard up and down motion is undertaken by an apprentice. Though quite a simple motion, it's not rare that an apprentice will have his hands scratched by the nails. It's even more the case with junior apprentices. It is in injury and scolding that an apprentice will make progress. Cotton shoveling is not time-consuming. 10 minutes produces half a kilo of cotton. A master usually starts to adjust the bow while an apprentice shovels the cotton. The bow is the main tool used to fluff cotton in the area of Jiangsu and Zhejiang. A strip of thick rope made of ox tendon is fastened to the mouth of the bow. It's called the string. Strike the string with the mallet to flick the cotton. As time has passed, fishing line has gradually replaced ox tendon, but the tenacity of fishing line is not as good as that which can be experienced with ox tendon. Bow adjusting allows the tightening of the string. It takes at least 1 to 2 years of experience to get familiar with the appropriate degree of tightness required. It's the same case as that which can be experienced when making fiddles. If the string is too loose, force generated by the string will not be sufficient to flick the cotton. On the contrary, if the string is too tight, contact surface is small and cotton will not cling to the string. It's generally during this process that a host will keep a close watch on a master at work to make sure his product is flawless. Chinese superstition has it that a broken string acts as a jinx for the whole host family. To avoid unnecessary trouble, apprentices are strictly prohibited from touching bows without a master's explicit permission.
For example, if you disobey a master's order, you will receive a fierce beating. On some occasions, a master promises not to beat his apprentice, but instead, he will let his apprentice go hungry. You'd better do what a master asks you to do.
When an apprentice finishes shoveling the cotton, it's time for a master to make his appearance. The sound generated from striking a string with a mallet is a very memorable sound for many Chinese people. It's always used to describe a lame piano player. There is some truth in this. Generally, the string has a constant frequency, or two frequencies if carefully distinguished. When inside the cotton, it gives a dull sound with a low frequency, when outside, a clear sound with a higher frequency. However, the sound is not always unpleasant. When the bow comes into good hands, it can be turned into a tabor and is capable of emitting beautiful rhythms. The flying cotton fiber around the string is a strong indication of how skilled a master is. No two masters are the same though, and each master specializes in some unique feature. Experienced craftsmen can differentiate the good from the bad by merely listening to the sound from a bow. In a narrow house, 70-year-old cotton fluffing craftsman Wang Runian is making preparations for his stunt, 48 strokes. 48 strokes means to strike the string 48 times in a row. It is a test of a master's physical strength and technique, during which the wrist holding the bow needs to maintain a slight but vigorous shake up and down so as not to entangle the string with the cotton fiber.
The skill is in knowing the string well. With every stroke, more cotton fiber clings to the string. With 4 or 5 strokes, the string should be totally wrapped in cotton.
The 48 strokes is a performance show with no special function. There is no particular concern given to how many strokes you should make in practice. Most of the master's skills are nothing more than a means to earn an employer's appreciation. Despite this, all craftsmen cherish their skills. It's not really connected to any material pursuit, it's related to the dignity of the craftsman, so it's something big. For a craftsman, dignity matters. Respect from surrounding people is a great motivating factor for craftsmen to keep on honing their abilities. It is dignity that makes an excellent craftsman. Essentially, cotton fluffing is unlike what it appears to be. It is a delicate craft which needs great patience and superb technique, rather than just being an act of merely physical work. Senior craftsmen know how to make up for weak physical strength with experience. Wang Runian started to learn his craft when he was 17 and hasn't dropped the bow in 53 years. Cotton fluffing is his life. Despite more and more people having fun with machines, Wang still enjoys striking bows in his house.
Watch my hand. My forearm keeps still, but the joint can move freely, almost as if it were broken. The strength element relies on these 2 joints, so it doesn't bear hardship to fluff cotton. A physically weak man can do it.
Cotton fluffing can be done with little labor, thus an employer is often seen complaining about a master who seems not to have exerted himself. Instead, the less experienced apprentice is always seen sweating and in a rush. Hence, some employers insist on letting an apprentice do a master's job. But usually an apprentice is not quite good enough to ensure that the cotton is even. The quilt will go to waste if the cotton is uneven. To make the cotton even, you should control the direction of the cotton while you're fluffing and press the cotton with the bow alternately. Dexterity is the secret behind these movements, and it's hard for an outsider to catch on to this. Cotton fluffing is indeed a great practice. Simple as the tools are, the wisdom of the Chinese people can be seen. The tool Xu Xiaobing is using is called a bamboo sieve. It can compact fluffed cotton and remove air gaps, thus providing more warmth. The bamboo chip is light, so fluffed cotton will never be overpressed. Not much technique is needed in doing this, thus it is often left to an apprentice. It's interesting to see just how many meals a master eats in one day. Masters used to go through the streets with their tools to seek employment. They generally worked in the house of their employers and would be treated well by their hosts. A host would prepare 5 meals for a master: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 extra meals between the intervals. But meals didn't come free. They were symbolic reminders encouraging masters to work harder. Masters were well aware of this and always did their best.
They don't trust you. They need the cotton to be fluffed in their houses, and they would rather serve you food and water in exchange for good work.
The enthusiasm of an employer and the door-to-door service provided by a master are 2 sides of the same coin. It's hard to have a new quilt made at that time. When Wang Runian entered the industry in the 1960s in Dangtu County, where he resided then, a single person could expect a ration of ½ kilogram of cotton per year, but a quilt required at least 4 kilograms of cotton.
After the events of 1949, it became impossible to buy cotton with money. Instead, you were expected to use cotton coupons. So, if your neighbor's daughter wasn't yet of marriage age, you could borrow their coupons and collect more coupons in this way.
When the process of pressing cotton is finished, a master uses dyed cotton to decorate the bat. Many hosts require that there be decorations in the form of delightful pictures of flowers, birds and trees, or some simple Chinese characters, or even the year of manufacturing. Each master has his own mark, which can be found on the bat when the quilts need to be reworked dozens of years later. The renowned masters are particularly concerned about their craft and devote themselves to safeguarding their marks. Those marks are meaningful to them.
Whatever a man does, he should be confident and seek excellence, learn social knowledge, and be a responsible person. As a man, your deeds rather than your words count.
As a profession delivering door-to-door service, the craftsmen have greatly facilitated people's lives. What's more, integrity is of paramount concern to them. A conscientious craftsman would never deceive people. His works reveal his attitude. Those old days were relatively isolated, but were worth remembering. People always bought things from their acquaintances with little concern for worry. People living in modern society are not typically bothered by quilts and would be unlikely to notice a cotton fluffing craftsman. But the warmth brought by the craftsman is always appreciated. The simplest, safest process is probably yarn drafting. Yarn drafting is done to fix the bat. It is 4 layers in red and green. This process is also the most impressive one for most of the apprentices.
A master has a bamboo batten that only he can use. An apprentice is forbidden from using it, even if he knows how. It would be deemed as an offense to a master.
The bamboo batten can also double as a powerful weapon. When drafting the yarn, a master stands and delivers the yarn at a great length. Apprentices usually find it hard to accurately catch the yarn, and this incompetence generally incurs an instant whacking over the hands. But it is in this way an apprentice becomes faster.
It takes 3 years of apprenticeship before an apprentice can fluff cotton on his own. Why 3 years? 2 months is enough for an adult to learn the technique, depending on how diligent he is. A master has to earn a living himself, and an apprentice receives nothing more than some new clothes once a year. After 3 years, an apprentice is also required to furnish a feast for his master to express gratitude.
An apprentice is always exercising caution and prudence in learning and behaving. Craftsmen are never bothered by food and clothes, and craftsmen never die from starvation. It is due to these salient features of a craftsman's life that a convention formed among craftsmen. A craftsman never reveals his skills readily. Typically, true mastery and expert level skill is always held back by a master for himself, and to a great extent can only be imparted within his family. Walking the disc on the soft bat is the skill by which Wang Runian sustains himself. Although in his 70s, Wang Runian is still just as capable of walking the disc as he was in his prime.
I could move faster when I was younger. I could walk 2 discs at once. That's just showing off to hold people's attention.
Walking the disc can make a master even better. He who can't walk the disc is not a good master. This is the point Wang Runian restates every time he walks the disc. Because it's a unique skill, Wang Runian has only imparted it to 3 apprentices. One is far away in the provincial capital, the other 2 are his sons. In the cotton fluffing industry, this process is generally called grinding. The tool is an abrasive disc with a flat surface on one side and a groove in a handle on the other side. In the groove, stones can be put to add weight and flatten the face of the quilt. The flat surface is usually rubbed with fine sandpaper first until fine particles appear. Rough particles might pull the yarn apart. This subtle control can only be realized by a master's experience and feeling. Grinding is the last process in cotton fluffing. The old standard was that the surface of the disc should be able to repel water. Xu Xiaobing's disc was inherited from his father. It has been in use for over 80 years. This disc is made of Chinese tallow tree. It is fireproof and corrosion resistant. However, there is little chance of making another disc this big and with this material. The big Chinese tallow trees have all been cut down. The old craftsmen say, were they to have cut down the trees, they would have first considered how to allow new trees to grow. Craftsmen who live by natural means know better the importance of life extension. What they inherited from the older generation was not only their craft, but also respect and reverence for nature. Xu Xiaobing hasn't fluffed cotton in the traditional way for years. Over the last 2 years, Xu Xiaobing has taken extraordinary pride in his profession. His pride is not buoyed by the cotton bow, however, but instead by large-scale equipment. Xu now owns the biggest quilt processing store and uses the best machines in Yongjie County.
Currently, profits are good. They say I am making good money. Why? Because I used to be very poor and was looked down upon, even by my parents. They used to say I was useless.
Xu Xiaobing is obsessed with machines. Beginning about 12 years ago, he started to study different kinds of cotton fluffing equipment. This machine was developed by him to supersede manual grinding. It looks crude, but can improve efficiency by a factor of 12.
It's labor saving. In the traditional way, you had to keep grinding. When summertime came, your perspiration would drip into the cotton, causing it to go rotten. I had made several machines before I succeeded with this one.
Xu Xiaobing's parting of ways with the cotton bow is a direct result of his discovery of the modern cotton fluffing machine. The machine overhauled people's expectations for cotton fluffing. There is no string sound and no flying cotton fiber. Cotton comes into the machine and back comes out. It used to take a skilled master a whole day to make a single quilt, but now it can be done in 1.5 hours. In this speed contest with the machine, craft has no advantage at all.
When I first entered this industry, I was referred to as the poor guy who fluffs cotton. But now, my business is big, my machine is advanced. People have started to admire me and respect me. It seems I am someone capable. Some local people, me included, we started out from scratch and became rich. That's something to say. We used to be better paid when compared with bricklayers and carpenters, but now things have changed. We get less pay than them. Why? It's all because of the machine. The machine makes mass production possible, so prices have gone down.
Compared with manual cotton fluffing, machines have brought us many surprises. Xu Xiaobing's machine can make quilts as big as 230 centimeters long and 220 centimeters wide. It is capable of meeting everybody's requirements. High-grade cotton from Xinjiang with long and good quality fiber instead of the local cotton is used. The grinding technology has also been innovated. The modern machine has innovated the product to perfection.
I hope that my store might become as big as Aokang, but I don't think that'll happen. I wouldn't mind even becoming an Aokang franchisee, even a small one. I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Handiworks are like a living and fresh thing. It's human nature to pursue vitality in life. Happiness naturally occurs when you're out in nature, because you see nature is brimming with life force. It's the same with handiwork. It's not about the force, it's about the technique. It's too weak. You lower it more, the strength can be bigger. The ancients created the quilt. It should be passed down. You should take on this responsibility.
Xu Xiaobing wants to pass the craft down, but there's not too much he can do about it because young people don't appreciate it. His hard work is not merely for money, but for the dignity of craftsmen and the transmission of the craft.
I hope I can expand my business in the coming years. Then my son might agree to take it over. He'll not even think about whether or not he'll likely bear hardship.
The age of manual cotton fluffing has faded away. Many craftsmen have put their tools away and have started to use the machine. Still more of them have changed their professions. Those who stick to the traditional craft are losing their competitiveness because they're thought to be conservative. The once familiar string sound now only exists in people's memories. The updated machines have greatly improved the production and quality of the quilts. They are also leading the trend. But it doesn't mean handiwork has totally lost its vitality. People can choose between a machine-processed quilt and a handmade quilt. It's a question of quality of life. This is where the warmth of craft lies. It is entirely bereft of anything to do with wealth and fineness.